Welcome to Dr. Osborne's Zone. Tonight, part 3 of Gaming the System. Look, the traditional medical model of autoimmune disease has miserably failed us all. Watch tonight's episode because I'm going to be breaking down some of the most important elements on how you can naturally overcome autoimmunity. Whether you struggle with multiple sclerosis, Hashimoto's, autoimmune skin disease like psoriasis, autoimmune inflammatory bowel diseases like celiac, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, scleroderma, dermatomyositis, doesn't matter. You're going to learn things that you can apply tonight that might just save your life. Stay tuned. You unlock this door with the key of compassion. Beyond it is another world, a world of science, a world of common sense, a world of sanity. You're moving into a land of both empathy and ethics, of nutritional knowledge and empowerment. You've just crossed over into Dr. Osborne's Zone. So welcome to a special 2-part series of the Dr. Osborne Zone. This is a series we're going to be discussing, which is an extension of the last 3 shows that we've done. The shows, if you haven't watched How the System Has Failed You, part 1, 2, and 3, you might want to go back and watch those. It'll get you better prepared to take on this information. This information we're going to talk about today is what I call the autoimmune revolution. This is a step-by-step guide for you to take and implement both on your own, but also if you're working with a functional medicine type doctor to overcome autoimmune disease. So it doesn't matter what your autoimmune disease is, whether it's multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, autoimmune hepatitis, fill in the blank. If you have an autoimmune condition and you're fed up with standard of care, if you're fed up with regular doctors wanting to mask your symptoms with medications, this is the series that you want to make sure you watch. So get your notepad ready. We're going to dive in to the depths of what you can actually implement. Starting tonight, you can start implementing this information to help your body naturally overcome autoimmunity. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So let's move into microbes. Microbial imbalance. So, we've got imbalances, we also got infections. So some examples here. You can have urinary tract or upper respiratory or sinus or skin, joint, intestinal infections. These are all possibilities. You can have bacteria and other microorganisms permeate or penetrate through pretty much any tissue in your body. The classic staph infection of the skin, the classic strep throat infection of the back of the throat, the classic H. pylori infection in the stomach. There's certain kind of bacteria that can penetrate and permeate into your joints, creating an increased risk for rheumatological joint inflammation. So these are all things that are possible, right, with microbes. Microbes, not necessarily that all microbes are bad. I don't want you to get the idea that bugs are necessarily bad, but imbalances of them can lead to heightened levels of inflammation and problems. And so acute or chronic, but we see yeast, bacteria, virus, and parasitic microorganisms all contributing to the process of molecular mimicry. Molecular mimicry is one of the known trigger factors for autoimmune diseases. If you're not familiar with what that is, go back and watch part 1, 2, and 3 of the system, How the System Has Failed You, for more detailed information on molecular mimicry. But again, sinus cavities, there's a type of staphylococcus or staph bacteria called MARCoNS, which stands for multiple antibiotic resistant coagulase negative staph, which is common in the sinus cavities. And then we also have yeast or molds can grow in the sinus cavities. As a matter of fact, a major study was published in JAMA years ago, and the study was based in the South, showing that most sinus and upper respiratory infections weren't bacterial at all. They were actually fungal in nature. And so if the doctor that you're visiting is not running a culture, a lot of times you go in, you got excessive mucus, you got congestion. Doctor just assumes antibiotic for a bacteria, but again, it might be fungal. And remember, one of the side effects of an antibiotic is fungal overgrowth. Antibiotics can cause candida to overgrow and fungus to overgrow in your body. So you want to be aware of that. That's why you want to ask your doctor for the culture test so that you can make sure the antibiotic is the right step to take. And then in the GI tract, you can have a candida or other yeast, you can have parasite, you can have bacterial abnormalities. In your skin and nail beds, very common, staph, yeast, herpes, or shingles. And then systemically, we have things like Lyme and viral Epstein-Barr. We have other bacteria like Klebsiella, Pseudomonas that can go systemic and create joint autoimmune problems. So lots of examples of microbe imbalances contributing to autoimmune disease. Sometimes these can be difficult to detect, and sometimes doctors, the reason they're difficult to detect is not because they're so difficult, it's because doctors refuse to test for them. But this is why it's important to work with a doctor who can do the lab to help guide you through this process. So the symptoms can vary greatly as well, anything from chronic fatigue, exercise intolerance, joint muscle pain without injury, right, without trauma, brain fog, low-grade fevers. One time I saw a young girl. She was 4 years old, and she would just have low-grade fevers all the time, 99 degrees, and she had been diagnosed by her other doctors as having rheumatoid arthritis, another case of rheumatoid arthritis, a juvenile in this case. In her case, she actually, her trigger was an actual infection. It was a type of bacteria called Klebsiella. And so when we discovered that, we had to change her diet too, but when we discovered that and got that taken care of, her autoimmune problems went into remission. And so again, low-grade fevers in kids, a lot of times they're dismissed, especially if they're recurring over and over and over and over again. Or a lot of times the kids are given just antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic, which sometimes is helpful and sometimes isn't. So just be aware that can be a symptom. Well, some good action steps here. Obviously good hygiene practices, wash your food, wash your hands, wash your sheets and pillowcases, on a regular basis, because these things can harbor microbes, especially when not washed adequately. Avoid the casual use of antibiotics. What I mean by casual use is just don't pop the antibiotic just because. You really want to work with a doctor to make sure that an antibiotic is the right step to take and not just a guess. Avoid popular public spaces where germs are easily spread. Now, you can't necessarily avoid these 100% of the time, but avoid them as much as you can. Airports or other crowded venues, daycares, hospital or acute care doctor's offices. Now a lot of times they've gone to sick rooms and they've gone to healthy rooms. So why would you be at a hospital if you were healthy? But anyway, the sick people that are sick sit in one area and the people that aren't sick sit in another area, to try to prevent the spread, but which is a good idea, I think. And then running, highly specialized air filters and having devices like air reactors and HEPA are good ideas in these locations. So I'm not trying to tell you to avoid a daycare if you needed a daycare. I'm not trying to tell you to avoid a hospital at all costs, but avoid them as much as you possibly can. And if you're healthy, you will. If a chronic infection is suspected, avoid. This is the opposite of what your regular doctor is going to tell you. They're going to tell you because you have a chronic infection, you should get a vaccine because your immune system is compromised. But I would say the opposite is true. Because you have it, if you take it, it could interfere with your immune system in such a negative way that it alters your immune system's ability to appropriately help you fight the problem. And so, again, this is something that you want to have a more in-depth conversation with your healthcare provider on this, but just my experience. Avoid immune-suppressing medications, and then seek professional help immediately. Now, if you're working with the doctor already, you want to perform appropriate testing to help identify this, and so complete blood count with differential. This helps you understand white blood cell patterns, and white blood cell patterns can help a doctor understand what kind of infection you have, and help them understand better how to help you treat it. As well, urinalysis, nasal cultures, GI cultures, specialized blood testing for antibodies and other immune-mediating compounds. These are all possible tests that you can talk with your doctor about ordering to help you understand the nature of the problem. And then always ask your doctor to differentiate before accepting broad-spectrum antibiotics. So, unless you're in an acute life-threatening situation, a test called a culture and sensitivity test is what you would want to ask your doctor for, where if they find a microorganism like a bacteria, They can also run a test against the bacteria growing in you to see which antibiotic would work the most effectively, because many antibiotics have become, or many bacteria rather, have become antibiotic resistant. So if you have a bacteria that is antibiotic resistant and they give you that antibiotic, in effect what you've just done is knocked out your healthy good flora but not had any impact at all on the bacteria that's actually hurting you. So culture sensitivity is what you ask your doctor to order, when they're prescribing that antibiotic in an effort to try to treat a bacterial infection. Okay, let's move into the physical realm of things. So physical is just as important. We've been spending a lot of time this last hour and a half or so on chemistry. What were those chemistries? Predominantly they were food, it was microbes, nutritional deficiencies, medications. Those are the things of chemical nature, things that come into your body that affect you in chemical ways that you can't see but you can feel and express as symptoms. So now we're going to get into the gross anatomical physical realm of the equation. And so there's an old adage, and that is structure dictates function, right? Square tires don't roll, so that we wouldn't put them on our car unless we wanted to have a headache and we wanted to jank our bodies up while we were driving, right? So example of structural issues for many people, probably the biggest one in our cultures today, is obesity. We've normalized obesity as beautiful, right? Big is beautiful, as many magazines would have you believe. Obesity is inflammatory, and so, but it also creates a physical structural issue, because the excessive weight puts pressure on your heart. For every pound of fat you store, your body has to grow anywhere from 1 to 3 miles of blood vessels to feed it. This puts tremendous more pressure on your cardiovascular system. We know it puts pressure on your joints. It puts pressure on your spine. And this can cause or lead to wear and tear, which can lead to physical arthritis, like osteoarthritis. So structural distress can feed illness. And even though obesity is oftentimes not really thought of as feeding autoimmune disease, what we know about people who are obese who have autoimmune disease is their outcomes are poor, they're less responsive to medicine, and they have a much greater symptom profile. So this is a major, major trigger for making a person with autoimmune disease's life worse. So obesity is an issue. If you're overweight, a big part of changing that physically is changing your diet. I mean, most people that I see that I put through No Grain, No Pain, or most people that come through my practice, if they're overweight, we're seeing on average in 10, 12 weeks, we're seeing 30, 40 pounds of weight loss as a pretty good standard of outcome. I mean, you think about that, that's tremendous. That amount of weight going away takes tremendous pressure off the body. Other examples of structure problems, scoliosis. Some people genetically have a genetic scoliosis, which is different. So there are some that are born with tremendous S-curves in their spine, and sometimes they need to go through some pretty intense physical therapy, chiropractic care, sometimes in even some cases surgery, although that should be a last resort. But scoliosis can really affect the nervous system, because the spine traverses, or the spinal cord traverses through the spine. And if there's torsion or torque on the spinal cord and on the nerves that exit the spinal cord, that can affect the neurological messaging that the brain is trying to send to your physical structures, to your organs, etc. So scoliosis can affect the body's ability to heal and repair in tremendous ways. Muscle spasm. And this is especially true of like chronic cramps, chronic spasms. When a muscle's in a spastic state, the blood supply is to the muscle is hindered. And so the oxygen to the muscle becomes hindered. And so then over time, the muscle can become more and more damaged. It can atrophy, it can shorten. When it shortens, it compresses the joints that it surrounds, and then that leads to, again, atrophy of the joint itself and what we call aging or osteoarthritis. Spinal misalignment, chronic injuries, osteoporosis, inadequate muscle, which again, I would say the top two in the U.S., top two in most industrialized countries are obesity and inadequate muscle tone. So it's like too much fat, not enough muscle, if we look at the average condition of the average person struggling. And we have this vicious cycle. Most of you maybe have heard me talk about the grainflammation cycle, but what happens is as we age or develop illness, we exercise less. I mean, and a lot of times we're told to exercise less, especially if we hurt. And sometimes we're just told do less because you're getting older, and you should, your mindset is that you should just slow down, and that's a false mindset. The older we get, the less exercise we're capable of doing is not necessarily a truth. That's just what most people are told. And I would challenge you that as the older you get, the more you should try to maintain your physical stature. And don't let it dwindle, because it's in that dwindling, when we look at long-term longevity research, the people that die earliest and that have the lowest quality of life are the ones that have the lowest muscle mass. And what maintains muscle mass? Activity, movement. You don't have to go become, an Olympic weightlifter to maintain good muscle mass, but you should always have a plan for physical activity in your life. If you don't have a plan, what do they say? Failing to plan is planning to fail. And you need your muscle. You need it. And there are a number of reasons why. You look at this diagram on the right, and you see the grain inflammation cycle. So when you consume grain, there's an inflammatory response that drives a hormonal change that increases your cortisol output. Well, too much cortisol causes you to lose muscle. That's why people that take long-term corticosteroids end up being under-muscled and overweight, diabetic, and have high blood pressure, because it affects their muscle mass over time. That muscle loss leads to weight gain. That weight gain causes joint compression and pain. That pain leads to exercise avoidance. That exercise avoidance leads to more muscle loss. It's a very vicious cycle that people go through. So that's why it's so important that you don't use age or even pain as an excuse to not be physically active. The issue is, if you're in pain, you have to understand why the pain exists, and you have to approach it from a root cause resolution perspective, so that you can help the pain go away, so that you can be more capable of that physical movement. Exercise is vital to achieve vitality. And so maintaining lean muscle mass prolongs the human lifespan. Muscle is not just for moving joints. Remember, your muscle's an immune system storage facility. So we're talking about autoimmune disease. Remember that end-stage autoimmune disease is cancer. What happens to cancer patients when they're losing is they waste. They develop what's called cachexia, which is severe muscle loss. Why? Muscle contains protein. That very protein that your immune system needs to produce antibodies to fight. So the more lean mass you have in reserve, the better you are arming your immune system with a rainy day fund, you think of it as a 401k, if you will, for your immune system, as your muscle mass, super critical. Muscle movement also increases oxygen uptake by the brain and other tissues. So movement improves oxygenation, and oxygenation increases energy. That's why when you exercise, you feel better and you have more energy. Muscle movement improves lymphatic flow through the body. Remember, your lymph system is how you clean your blood, and your lymph is partly how you detoxify. So we need that movement. The lymphatic system has no pump. It's not like the heart that pumps the vessels or pumps the blood. Lymphatics are pumped by movement, by muscle. Muscle use regulates blood sugar and insulin. Two very, very common problems, in our cultures today is, the overconsumption of carbohydrates and the underconsumption of exercise, which leads to insulin resistance and high levels of blood sugar. So the more muscle you have, the better you are at burning glucose or carbohydrate as an energy source. And then sweating from exercise also can improve detoxification. So exercise, very important. So if you have chronic pain, or if you have a chronic injury, some key notes here. Start slowly and increase your activity based on your ability to tolerate it. But start somewhere. Don't not start. Don't use your pain as an excuse to do nothing. Find someone with experience who can guide you. I'd say if you're in a really bad way, you want to work with like a chiropractor or physical therapist, a certified trainer with good 5 years of experience that works with people who are chronically ill. And what you don't want to do is go hire an 18-year-old trainer who puts you through an exercise regimen so that you can't walk all week next week. That's not a sustainable program or plan. So work with somebody who's experienced. Chiropractic, physical therapy, acupuncture, deep tissue manipulation can all be effective to helping you recover your physical joints, muscles, tendons, ligaments. Heat via infrared and also via red light therapies can be very helpful in healing and repair. Cryogenesis can be very helpful for super chronic injuries. I don't like cold on an acute strain or a sprain. So like don't ice your foot if you have if you've sprained it. Like ice is one of the worst things you can do initially for sprain because it reduces blood flow, and remember, you need blood flow to heal. But it can be very effective for a chronic long-term injury that hasn't healed. So that's where a cryo chamber might be beneficial. And then there are some newer things like platelet-rich plasma or stem cell injections that can have profound benefit and effect for chronic injuries or chronic pain issues should these other approaches fail. Now, some home-based action steps. Consider, before drugs and surgery, consider these things first. Self-care, so that would be stretching, foam rolling, self-massage. Get a massage gun, work that thing into areas and loosen them up and improve circulation. There are a number of supplements that can be supportive of inflammation, of healthy inflammation response. Vitamin C, quercetin, omega-3, proteolytic enzymes, turmeric, glucosamine, white willow, boswellia, calcium, magnesium, MSM. Go back and review my pain show if you want to do a deeper dive on supplements that help with pain and inflammation. And then physical contact. This is one that oftentimes is ignored. It's one of the reasons why I like massage. It's a form of physical contact. Chiropractic is a form of physical contact. Humans need touch, and there's different kinds of touch. We say that physical contact from a good therapist, a good chiropractor, a good PT, a good massage therapist can be healing if that person has good healing energy. And remember, energy has transference from the practitioner to the person receiving the therapy. So there's positive energy can be transferred through touch, and so those are ways, at least therapeutically, to get access to that. But also don't forget the power of positive touch in your life, with your spouse or your loved ones. Like, so the power of touch, a hug, a kiss, holding hands, even sexual intercourse. These are all things that are important for humans. We need touch. And touch provides hope and positivity in our life, and you should seek it out as much as you possibly can, especially in our world today where we've gone so far on the political correct spectrum that, now if you put your hand on somebody's shoulder at work to console them because maybe they're having a bad day, you're worried about a sexual harassment suit or something, ridiculously crazy. But, humans, colleagues, people, shouldn't be, this is just my opinion, shouldn't be scared of genuine touch. Now, being pervy is a totally different matter, and that's not what we're referring to here, but genuine touch, again, can be important, and it can be very, very helpful, and it can be a component to healing. Consistent movement at home. Take many walks, take breaks at work. A lot of people sit at a desk for 8 hours a day. They never get up. I mean, that's terrible. I've been talking now for 2 hours. And I'm ready to get up and take a break. I'm not going to until I finish this, but take those breaks periodically. Program them into your day. Consider ergonomic chairs. What you don't see is I'm sitting actually on an ergonomic stool right now, and it has a wobble base so that I have to kind of maintain my core to balance myself as I'm sitting. And it allows me to have some movement as opposed to just solid sitting. Consider, some people get an exercise ball as a chair. Some people, I like the desk treadmill. I have a desk treadmill also under my desk. Try to achieve 10,000 steps daily of walking. If you can't get 10,000, start with what you can get, but do more and increase it as time goes on. Yoga or organized guided stretching routine. There's endless resources, digital resources on stretches and yoga that you can tap into that could be beneficial to move your body. A rebounder trampoline helps to move lymph flow, and it's a very mild form of exercise for some of you, those of you who may be in chronic pain. Whole body vibration can be a very effective therapy for movement and motion as well. And as I mentioned earlier, desk treadmills. So all can be helpful. Now, if you look at this diagram, don't think of this diagram as all-inclusive, but just think of this as some of the general ideas that you can tap into. But perform these things to tolerance. It's better to do less than to do too much, especially if you're just getting started. Don't forget HIIT. If you don't know what that means, that HIIT, H-I-I-T, stands for High Intensity Interval Training, and it's very effective for rebuilding muscle if you've got chronic muscle loss. And then swimming. If you really struggle with limitations, swimming is one of the best ways to get back to exercise because it emulates a zero gravity environment. And so many of you who are really, really in a bad way might find pool therapy to be very effective. Vibration, as I mentioned, vibration platforms, yoga, exercise bands work well for those who don't tolerate more aggressive forms of activity. But get movement daily, 6,000 to 10,000 steps. And, you should, just like you define times in your life to go on vacation, you define times in your life to go to work, you define a time for lunch and breakfast and dinner, you define a time to watch TV. You whether you do it consciously or subconsciously, you have defined times where you have planned to do something. Put exercise and motion and movement into that plan. Most of you, this gets the back burner. You get to the end of the day and you're tired and this loses out, So don't do that. Take advantage and put it in your schedule. Now, if you're working, with a practitioner, depending on the doctor's expertise, get a complete physical movement exam performed. So go on and have somebody assess your movement, your limitations, any muscular or joint imbalances that you might have so that they can, cater a plan or a program for you specifically to help you. Ask for guidance. Ask for a referral. If you go see a GP, and it's not their skill set, to do that, ask them. Look, if you've got insurance and a referral from your GP will cover, chiropractic or physical therapy or whatever it might be, then go work with somebody who's knowledgeable. We'll get that referral and get it done. Ask about non-invasive treatment options, for pain. Cold laser, ultrasound, frequency-specific microcurrent, TENS, EMS, chiropractic manipulation, acupuncture, stem cell, PRP. These are all therapies that can be extremely helpful and effective. Again, so have a conversation with your doctor about them before you jump into a surgical procedure or before you just start taking medications to suppress the disease or the symptoms, because the suppression's not going to do you any favors in the long haul. Okay, let's go into the spiritual, emotional aspect of healing. So again, if we're summarizing, we started with chemistry, right? And there was food, nutrients, microbes, and toxins under chemistry. And then, so those four, and then we got into the physical realm, and now we're getting into the spiritual, emotional realm. So if you see in this slide, up the upper right-hand corner of the slide, you'll see the emotional, spiritual highlighted there. That's what we're going into. Again, these three categories of areas are fundamental to the expression of healthy you. So the autoimmune mindset, it's just my experience working with thousands of people over decades, is hope is the number one requirement for healing. If you are hopeless, you won't heal. So hope is a requirement. Now, most of you watching this, or probably all of you watching this, have hope, or you wouldn't be watching it. You would be somewhere probably sulking. Your thoughts can become you. And so a lot of people who've been chronically ill, their life becomes the illness. And so then their thoughts go to the illness so frequently that they begin to define themselves as the sick person. And you really have to break that mindset. So, emotionally, you want to let yourself know that you're going to heal and tell yourself that you're going to heal, and don't get stuck in the negative. And I know that maybe sounds easy to say and maybe harder to do, especially if you've struggled for years with chronic illness or you're in tremendous pain. But, hope and positive thinking have to come somewhere in your path to healing, because without them, you're going to struggle. Laughter is one of the best forms of medicine. A lot of the people that I've seen over the years, we get to a point in their care and they plateau. And one of the questions I like to ask them is, when's the last time you laughed? When's the last time you had fun? And a lot of times when we're managing our life around a chronic illness and our life becomes about managing the illness, we forget how to have fun. We forget to tap into our inner selves and our youth, our youthful selves. And so this can be a very important endeavor, exercise spiritually and emotionally to embark upon, is don't forget that young you, that child you that played, that ran in the sun, that rode a bike, that laughed, that giggled at things, that made silly jokes. Like, kind of try to reharness that, tap back into that as much as you can while you're going through your healing journey and beyond. And then unresolved emotions. So, a lot of people live in the past. They've got unresolved issues, and so they stay in the past. And when you're stuck in the past, you can never move to a better, prominent, brighter future. So it's very important that you deal with any past indiscretions, whether you deal with that by confronting those things, by working with a professional, by acknowledging that you can't stay stuck in the past and choosing to move forward, choosing to forgive. I find that many people that are stuck in the past are stuck because they can't forgive what happened to them, and so forgiveness becomes a roadblock in their restorative approach to their own healing. And so forgiveness is a powerful tool as well. Be a partner advocate with a good doctor, a good functional doc, or healthcare provider. I think it's important that you don't seek out help from a professional with the expectation that the professional is going to fix you. I think this partner advocate means that you seek the expertise, the skills, the knowledge, and the wisdom of a practitioner to be your partner on your journey, to help guide you, but know that it's your body that's going to heal you. It's your choices and your behaviors that are going to heal you. And so that's what I mean by be a partner advocate. Advocate for yourself and be a partner with good guidance, but don't expect a doctor or a stranger to work a miracle for you. Your body is going to work the miracle. The doctor or the practitioner is just going to guide you down the right path. Expand your horizons. One of the things I've also seen where people start to struggle in their life with autoimmune persistence is failure to continue to grow as a person. Like their whole life is now defined by their illness, so there is no more growth. There's no more personal growth. There's no more spiritual or emotional growth. And so they become stagnant. And when people become stagnant in their ability to grow, they become depressed. And that depression, it's not just depression, I'm sad, it's depression of function. It's depression of healing. And so expand your horizons. Read books. I like audiobooks. I probably go through 10 a month, easy. Explore topics that you're passionate about. And it doesn't always have to be the topic of how you heal yourself. It could be another topic. It could be, I just got through again, as an example, I just finished up rereading a series. You guys have probably all heard of Harry Potter. Well, I just reread that series audio style, even though I'd already read it. And I find that, it helps. It helps when you can relax and when you can not always just dedicate your life to being stern and serious, and that you can escape or have a way of escape. And so, whether that's through books, maybe some of you like to watch TV programs or whatever it might be, you want to explore the ability to escape the misery of the existence of chronic illness. And kind of rewire and remap your brain and put it in a position where it can be happier, even if it's for moments, so that it can give you strength to take on the bigger challenges as you go through this process. Observe the world around you. I'm a big fan of going outside. I live on a farm, so I'm fortunate to have that in my own life. But if I didn't, and when I didn't, sometimes I would just sit out on the porch and watch the birds. Or watch nature, watch the clouds blow, watch the trees, listen to the wind. Observing nature can be very, very peaceful. The Japanese actually have done a lot of research on this. They what they call forest bathing, which is when you're out in nature and you allow for your senses to interact with the world around you, there's a therapeutic healing benefit. There's actually studies that show that it reduces the chronic production of chronic stress hormones. So connecting with the world around you can be an important part of your healing journey spiritually. As you're learning to use the internet, you have access to one of the best tools. We are so blessed in this world of ours to have this instant access to knowledge that wasn't available even as little as 25 years ago. And so that you have this amazing tool. If you're expanding your horizons, use that as a tool. Discover love of a new hobby. Find something that you enjoy and go and learn about it and go and do it. Again, grow in your spirituality. Grow as a person. When we grow is when we're learning, and so learn new things and don't be shy to pick up a new habit or hobby. I say learn from others. I mean, you guys are here watching this, learning probably from me, hopefully learning from me. And then when you're done learning, return the favor. I think, the way we garner wisdom in life is we garner intelligence by learning, and then we garner experience by applying what we learned, and then we garner wisdom by the outcomes of the application of what we tried. And I think part of growth, there's an old adage in academia, which is learn, do, teach. And so you go through 8 years of school to learn, and then you go through clinic and hospital to do, and private practice to do, and then if you're really blessed, you go on and you teach to others. And that's why I have this platform. It's I'm teaching to you. I also take time to teach other professionals, other doctors. But learn, do, teach is a practice that you can have too in your own life. As you learn and as you apply, you can share that information with others and help them as well. And it just makes your life more fulfilling when you can bring joy, peace, a smile, better health to somebody else's life through your own actions. Because the alternative to that is to do nothing and not bring joy, peace, love, happiness, a smile, or better health to somebody else's life. And then play with a child. And again, in our immature, politically sensitive world today, some of you might interpret that in the wrong way. What I mean by that is children are a window into a world that most adults forget. Right, the window of imagination, the window of possibilities, the window of amazement, right? And so few adults, as they age and grow old, they become cynical, and many people become bitter, and it basically hinders their ability to be happy. And so being around kids can help you re-tap into that. So depending on your age, maybe you've got children, and that's great, and that's great. You should definitely spend time to play with them and interact with them. Many of you may be grandparents, and so spend time or dedicate some time to be with those grandchildren as well, because there's a lot that can be learned, and then there's also a lot of vicarious living that you can do. I think part of the benefit of being older and becoming wiser and more cynical, part of the benefit of children is that they keep us grounded and they help us live vicariously. They help us relive the wondrous moments of youth that made us shine when we were younger. And as life experiences can sometimes dull that shine, children can vicariously help us get it back. So the youth are very important, and it's important to pour into them and to nourish them, but they also have this uncanny ability to spiritually nourish you back, so don't forget that. Okay, some more home-based action steps. Prayer. I think, maybe not all of you are religious. I am, and, I do believe in God, and so, I'm not trying to force my religion or my beliefs on any of you, but whether you believe in God or higher power or whatever you believe in, know that you have to, at some point in your life, let go of control. I think too many people try to control every facet or every aspect of their life, and it's within that control that their life becomes overwhelming. And so there's a number of adages, but the serenity prayer, which I'll paraphrase, which is basically control what you can and pray about the rest, or give things up to God, or give things up to a higher power, and don't feel like you have to control it all. Surround yourself with supportive people. Look, if you're around people that don't support you well, or that aren't helpful, you might consider your relationships and consider how to navigate different ones, or navigate around them, at least until you restore your health. Meditation. Many people benefit from just peace and quiet, and retrospectively, internally thinking. And meditation is a great way to do that as well. One of the things that I have found to be very effective, even personally, is something called sensory deprivation, which, if you've ever heard of a float tank, it's just a big tank that's full of magnesium salt, and you get in it and you float. literally, there's so much salt in the tank, your body floats in the water, and you're wearing blinders and earplugs, and it's in the dark, so you can't see, and the water is the same temperature as your skin, so you don't really feel it. You're floating, so there's no gravitational force. That's hence sensory deprivation. You're deprived of sight, of hearing, of gravity, and you're deprived of temperature sensation. And so it's kind of like meditation on training wheels. For those of you who've had a hard time maybe trying to meditate, float tanks can really, really get you there a lot faster. EFT can be an effective therapy, emotional freedom technique. If you don't know what it is, there's plenty of resources that you can check out and learn more about it. Positive affirmations. Educate yourself. As I mentioned, in the previous slide, expand your horizons, educate yourself. Most health errors are made from ignorance, and not necessarily stupidity, but ignorance, just a lack of knowledge. So don't forget that on this journey you're learning. Know thyself. I would say that one of the fundamental tenets to improving outcomes is knowing and being honest with yourself about realistically who you are. I'll give you an example. I love to exercise. However, if I don't do it in the morning, it won't happen. If I don't go and exercise at 5:30 a.m., and when I get home at the end of the day, after talking to you lovely folks, I'm going to eat dinner and I'm done for the day. I'm not going to try to push myself. Because I know that about myself, and I can be honest with myself about that, I know that if I don't get more early morning exercise, that it won't happen. So if I'm going to prioritize it, I have to prioritize it in that time slot. And there are many ways that you can know yourself and know what is realistic for you and know what is not. But I just would say that being honest with yourself as you embark on this journey is very, very important, because if you set yourself up with false expectations because you're lying to yourself, then you're not going to be successful as you go through this. Be proactive versus reactive. Don't wait for a problem. I think many people are in an autoimmune state because they've been reactive and not proactive. What does proactive mean? Proactive means you apply fundamentals to good health and you prioritize them in your life above all other things. Look, you have one body, you have one vessel, if you will, that is a gift to you. And if you don't cherish it and treat it well, then it will break down on you. And so how do we be proactive for that? Well, I call it the non-negotiable fundamentals. Diet's not negotiable. Exercise isn't negotiable. Outdoor time is not negotiable. Clean air is not negotiable. Sleep is not negotiable, and clean water is not negotiable. And if you're negotiating in those areas all the time, you're going to end up being reactive. You're going to end up with disease, and you're going to end up reacting to that illness. Proactive is the place to be. Once you get into a state where you are in good health, stay proactive. Remember, it's the consistent habits day in and day out that matter. It's the little things done consistently over time that have the greatest impact in your life and your health. And it's not the New Year's resolution that fizzles out after 2 weeks in January that is going to impact you. Invest time in acquiring knowledge. You're doing that today, hopefully, and invest time in applying your acquired knowledge. So that's, again, intelligence then experience, and then teaching others is wisdom, as I mentioned before, and then be accountable to yourself, but be accountable to others as well, or let others know what you're trying to achieve, so that you have accountability partners, supportive partners in your realm, so that, again, you increase your odds at success. Okay, now I'm working with an expert, spiritually, emotionally, you might consider biofeedback, you might consider counselors, you might consider working with a pastor, you might consider a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I think in those particular arenas, when working with an expert, the most important thing is that you trust that expert and that you trust that they care, and you trust, if it's a doctor or healthcare provider, you trust that they have empathy to you, and that they're not just on the couch listening and doodling without you seeing what they're writing down. Like I know because I know a lot of people in this industry, and I've heard a lot of really nightmare stories about counseling in that way, where it's, the person doing the counseling shouldn't be doing the counseling. Just like any other healthcare provider, whoever you pick, if you're going to go get professional help, should be somebody that you can trust and somebody with good bedside manner and somebody who actually cares about people. Otherwise, in my opinion, the best counselor in the world is a spouse. In my opinion, period, the best counselor in the world is a spouse. It's the person that loves you the most. It's the person that stands by you. It's the person that wants the best from you and wants you to be the best you. And so that counsel, in my opinion, is irreplaceable and invaluable. So also don't forget, and that's why it's important to surround yourself, with the right people and the right relationships, because in my opinion, that's some of the best counseling you could ever receive. Okay. So in summary, back to the slide, this is the autoimmune recovery matrix. If you've got autoimmune disease, this is your blueprint template, if you will, to investigate all the right elements: food, vitamin and mineral deficiencies, microbe imbalances, sensitivities, chemical and food-based sensitivities, metals, gut integrity and dysbiosis, physical issues, emotional and spiritual issues. I want you to know it's very, very important that this process works best when you approach it all together, not in pieces. So don't work one part of this diagram by itself without working the other parts. That's what we call piecemealing. Piecemealing always leads to failure or disappointment. And a lot of the people that come to see me have worked with other doctors, worked with other practitioners. The reason they're in my office is because they've been piecemealed to death. Do not piecemeal yourself. Do not cut yourself short. You have to work them all if you want to be successful. These are what we call, this diagram are the non-negotiables. You want to work them all, and you want to work them all simultaneously. Remember, there's no perfect approach for everyone. Biochemical individuality trumps generic recommendations. That's why it's important to test for the biochemical. Your body is whole, and it requires a holistic approach. Remember, medicine is a reductionist approach. You go to a heart doctor, you go to a thyroid doctor, you go to a skin doctor. Nobody can see the forest through the trees because they're all so focused on one organ, one system, that they don't take time to consider that it's all interconnected. Remember that healing can take time. And so, in my experience, if we hit all the right notes, and this is when I'm working one-on-one with somebody, it generally takes anywhere from 18 months to 3 years. And there's a scientific reason behind this. 3 to 6 generations of immune cells is what that time frame represents. And when you're dealing with an autoimmune process, it takes that many generations to put autoimmune disease into quiescence. There are, if you look at this slide here, there's 3 kind of, if we want to really simplify it, what we're really doing with this approach that I've laid out for you is, number 1, we're removing things that are bad for you. Food, toxins, infection, or microbial imbalance, inflammation, people and relationships. Right? We're getting rid of those things. We're moving on from them because those are the things that oftentimes are what are holding you back. Then we want to replace and repair. And we do that with lots of things, but healthy microbiomes, a healthy gut, healthy digestion. We want to repair damaged tissues. We want to have food and nutrients to do that. We want environmental nutrients like water and oxygen and healthy relationships to help us repair. We need love to repair. We need vitamins to repair, right? These are important, but repair has to be part of how you work. And then restoration and maintenance. Once we get past the repair state, we want to have the maintaining of that health. So all the things that it took to get you there have to continue to go on, right? And so you want to exercise, you want to rest, you want to get sunshine, you want to have purpose, you want love, you need solid food. You need those things to be consistent because that's what maintenance is. So many people get through a protocol, and then on the other end of the protocol, when they feel better, they go back to the old habit of destroying themselves. And so remember that maintenance part is the most important part. Once you get on the other side, you have to maintain it. But nothing worthwhile is easy. You either have the choice to live your life conveniently with illness, or you can do things less conveniently but feel great and take more meaning of feeling great and what that means in your relationships and in your experiences. And I encourage you on the latter rather than the former. So all in all, work the system. The system will work for you if you work the system, but don't piecemeal it. Remember, intelligent, guided action, body feedback, make adjustments, you'll make improvements, you will have setbacks, but that's where you go back to intelligent and guided action. This is the cycle of the journey of healing, and keep working it. Keep working the steps and you'll get there. So what's next? Make sure you come visit me at glutenfreesociety.org if you haven't already. Sign up for our newsletters there, glutenfreesociety.org. I'm going to send you so much free information about how to restore and how to feel better and how to eat well and how to be well. So make sure you go there and sign up for that. You want to also, if you want support, if you want an inclusive community of people who are going through this already and will help support you, join one of my Facebook groups here. You can see here it's called the Dr. Osborne Support Community. You can also tune in for my weekly live Q&A classes. We do those every Thursday at 12:30 right here. So make sure you're aware of that. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, that little bell button. Hit the subscribe and then the bell, and that way that you'll get notifications when we go live for these Q&As. They'll send them straight to your phone. So join me. You can ask me the questions on those days. If you've got something that's stumping you, that's what that live Q&A is for. It's me donating my time, right? Learn, do, teach. It's me sharing my wisdom and experience with you for free because I care about you, I love you, and I want you all to have wonderful, healthy abundance in your life. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next show.
I'm 62 years old, and I'm living with my mother who has Parkinson's disease, and my dad died from Parkinson's disease about 5 years ago. And when my daughter introduced me to Dr. Osborne through her son who was autistic, and he started to get better, and then her husband was also really sick, and he started to get better, and then my sister-in-law was really sick, and she and my brother both came in to see Dr. Osborne. They started to get better. And so I decided to read Dr. Osborne's book. And that's really what got me thinking, because there are references in his book to autoimmune disease, and that part of the autoimmune disease system can be in the brain and can cause Parkinson's and autism and other things, dementia and those types of things. So my reasons for coming to see Dr. Osborne were really more preventative. I don't want to get Parkinson's. Because I wasn't chronically ill, I didn't see myself as sick. But I did notice that I couldn't smell. I was not sleeping through the night. I was probably getting up 4 or 5 times to go to the bathroom. I had lots of brain fog. I was tired all the time. I couldn't seem to lose weight. I was constantly dieting and not able to lose weight. I thought all of those were just age-related. So when I came to Dr. Osborne, I said, I'm here because of the success that you've had with my other family members. And I don't want to get Parkinson's, and I don't want to get other autoimmune diseases like lupus and dementia and those types of things. And I'm starting to see those symptoms happen in me. And so Dr. Osborne recommended that I get a litany of tests. I did urine tests and fecal tests and all kinds of testing to really get the scientific look at what's inside me. And then he gave me a protocol for supplements and foods to avoid. And I embraced it and took it on, and I cook all my meals now, and I carry food with me, and I really enjoy my life now. I'm sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night. I bought a Fitbit so I could actually see it and believe it. I don't have to get up and go to the bathroom as much as I used to, maybe once a night now, maybe. And I don't have any more brain fog, and the weight just fell off. I didn't have to diet. I didn't have to count calories. I just ate the foods that I'm supposed to eat. And I lost 42 pounds in 5 months. It was awesome. What really attracts me to Dr. Osborne is that he has one of the kindest hearts I've ever seen. He's so empathetic, really understands, listens to you. When you're talking to Dr. Osborne, you're the only thing on his mind. He just stares right at you and listens to every word you say and remembers everything. And then he has this amazing mind. He can remember everything, but he knows so much, and he just pulls things right out of his head. Yes, this is something that we ought to test you for, and these are the reasons. And then everything is scientific. It's all in black and white. That's another reason why I like it. Then you have that to go back to. It's your anchor. Once you find out how your body chemistry is, how God made you, what your genetics say about you, once you find that out, you have hope. You don't have to guess anymore. You don't have to try weird things. My dream is when I'm 90 years old, I'm still walking 5 miles in the morning, and I'm still reading, and I'm still quoting scripture because I haven't forgotten it all, and I'm still an engaging person to talk to, and I'm not talking about doctors and my health. I'm talking about life. That's the kind of 90-year-old woman I want to be. I feel beautiful again, inside and out. And I don't feel like I'm 62 years old. I feel like I'm 17.
I started having some health issues around 2011. I'd been relatively healthy up to that point in time, and the first thing I noticed was I was doing a training ride for a bike ride I do every year. It was called MS 150, and noticed I was extremely tired and got more tired than usual on these things. So something was going on with that, I thought. I had a physical, and they came back with I was extremely anemic, which was a surprise. I'd never had that happen before. Well, that brought on a bunch more tests. They found out that I did have some damage to my intestines, and they basically diagnosed at that point I had celiac. And the celiac was causing my body not to absorb the iron that needed to be absorbed, so it's causing the anemia. I had some blood work done, and my liver enzymes were skyrocketing. So they were 2 or 3 times higher than normal. So that brought on some more tests. I had a liver biopsy, and they basically diagnosed autoimmune hepatitis at that time. The doctors at that point were just saying, okay, your options are going to be steroids. I've had family members that have been on that type of medication, and I know what it can do to you. And there's a lot of side effects. So I was looking for other options. Did some research, found Dr. Osborne, figured out this was a much better approach. So I made an appointment. We came in, did a bunch of tests, found out that I had some deficiencies that I needed to correct, and also just being bread-free basically was not going to do it. I needed to be really grain-free to solve the problems that I had. 6 months or so after starting the protocol and changing the diet, 6 to 9 months was significant improvement, and at that point I really haven't been limited in my physical activity, haven't felt the tiredness, the drain that I was feeling from the anemia I had before. Liver enzymes are back where they're supposed to be, haven't had problems with that. Coming here, we spent quite a bit of time going over my history, talking through what's been going on, understanding the issues I had personally with the celiac and the liver issues I had. So yeah, we spent time walking through how the body contributes to that, how important it is to have the nutrition levels where they need to be. I'd never been through that before at any doctor at any point in my life. They try to get to the source of the problem, not just treat the symptoms. I think about my family members who are going through some similar situations, and it would be selfish on my part not to recommend it to them. So I've told them about it, told friends and family, and some of them have also pursued this as well and seeing good results. So why would I keep that a secret?
Thanks for tuning in to the Dr. Osborne Zone. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe for more content like this, and make sure you come back next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time and Thursday at noon 30 for more episodes.